We're joined now by Elena Bakatoros via Skype. She is the bureau chief for the Associated Press in Athens. So what does this mean, that the banks and the stock market are closed tomorrow?
The banks and the stock market will be closed tomorrow, and restrictions will be placed on how much money Greeks can withdraw from their bank accounts using ATM machines. The Prime Minister announced it in a televised address. He said it came after a recommendation by the Bank of Greece. What he didn't say is exactly how long the banks will remain closed and how much the banking transactions will be restricted. A few banking sources have told us that the banks will probably be shut for several days, probably the entire week.
All right, so if all these banks are shut, that means basically commerce starts to grind to a halt. I mean, how do you pay for your groceries, or how do the groceries pay their suppliers?
It's very unclear at the moment exactly what credit capital controls will be imposed. It's not clear what kind of transactions will be allowed, whether electronic bank transfers will be allowed, whether people can pay their bills or not. Nobody actually has been told this at the moment.
Now, there's also a gap here. On Tuesday is when Greece is essentially set to default on its first massive loan payment. But the government or the parliament has approved a referendum that won't happen till next Sunday.
Yes, indeed. And the Prime Minister said tonight that he has renewed his request for the bailout to be extended until the referendum is held. He had made the same request over the weekend, earlier this weekend, and it was rejected by the Eurogroup, which is the other 18 finance ministers of the Eurozone. So far, that hasn't been accepted, and Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras said tonight that he has renewed that request. It remains to be seen whether that will be approved.
And when we also see that the European Commission, the bankers, actually publicized the deal that's on the table, kind of in an effort to show how far they've come to make Greece solvent.
Yes, indeed. The referendum, the way that it's been called at the moment, has been the government is advocating a no vote, and they are saying that it is on the creditors' proposals. The problem is that so far, until the Commission actually publicized this document, there hadn't been an officially released document of what exactly this proposal was. It was all in the form of leaks to the press from meetings in Brussels. And it also hasn't been translated in Greek. So there might be an issue with that when Greeks are being asked to vote on a proposal that many of them, who, if they don't speak English, haven't been able to read yet.
So what do you see happening here in the next week? I mean, we've been talking about this for 4 years, 5 years now.
I have to be honest, it's very unclear. I'm not sure anybody knows exactly how this is going to play out. There are several scenarios from the sort of more reasonable to the more outlandish, but if there's one thing that this crisis has taught us is to expect the unexpected. It remains to be seen how this will play out. The chances of Greece not paying its debt that's due on Tuesday, which is 1.6 billion euros, is at this stage pretty high.
All right, Elena Bakatoros joining us via Skype, the Associated Press bureau chief in Athens. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hundreds gathered in Paris to show their solidarity with Greece, supporting Athens' resilience in fighting the harsh bailout conditions now being demanded. The protesters were mainly from France's left-wing parties. The Prime Minister is calling for Greece to be respected to make sure it stays in the Eurozone.
None of us knows the consequences of a Greek exit from the Eurozone, neither politically nor economically. So we should do everything to ensure Greece stays in the Eurozone. Do everything while respecting Greece and democracy, but also European rules. The Greek government should come back to the table and negotiate.
Well, financial commentator Jim Rogers is with me now to discuss the situation further. You're very welcome to the programme once again. Greece's government is campaigning for a no vote in the referendum. If Greece rejects the European money, what would this mean for the rest of Europe?
Well, actually, it means a lot to journalists like you because you have to report it. But Greece is a tiny, tiny part of the European economy, and it's nothing. It's insignificant for the world economy. It's a lot of headlines, a lot of noise, and it will cause the markets to be disruptive for a while. But 3 months from now, none of us remember if Greece goes bankrupt.
Greek banks will stay closed for a week. That's another big news story coming out. How is that going to affect the economy there?
Well, of course, it's going to affect it badly. If you cannot get any money, you cannot spend it. And we're not reverting to a barter economy yet, anyway. But no, of course, the Greek economy is going to collapse this week and probably for a while. People are terrified, and you would be too. So would I.
What about the overall picture here? Greece blames the EU for the debt crisis, but its finances and policies have been in a really bad state since joining the euro, really. Surely you should take some responsibility.
And the Greek economy has been in a bad shape for about 190 years. This goes back to when they became independent a long time ago. No, you're exactly right. This economy has been having recurrent crisis since they joined the EU. This has been going on for several years now. If you ask me, what they should do is just go ahead and go bankrupt, get it over with, and start over. But all of this calling names and blaming it on other people is not going to do any good.
Citizens are being restricted to withdrawing only €60 a day from their bank accounts, as I said, for at least a week. Do you think they're going to reject the EU's terms come Sunday?
No, I'm sure they will accept the, no, they will, yes, they will reject the EU's terms. I'm sorry, yes. I'm sure they will. The problem is, this means it's the citizens of Greece who are going to be suffering, and the bailout is for the banks and the financiers. What they should do, as I say, let the banks go bankrupt. They made the loans. You and I didn't make the loans. Let them go bankrupt and start over.
Yeah, fascinating few days ahead. Financial commentator Jim Rogers, thanks very much for joining us on RT International this hour.
Greece is currently about $400 billion in debt. That's about 170% of their annual gross domestic product. Over the next 50 years, they are scheduled to repay that, but with the economy in shambles, many experts wonder if that goal is feasible. But how did Greece end up with so much debt in the first place? And to whom specifically does Greece owe money? Greece became somewhat politically and economically unstable back in the 1970s after an attempted government coup. Nevertheless, after a profit spike in the 1990s, they made the fiscal requirements to join the Eurozone in the year 2000. This event inextricably tied Greece to stronger economies like Germany and France, and allowed Grecians more access to low-interest loans. So public spending and government borrowing soared, even as Greece's debt remained higher than the Eurozone average in the 2000s. When the international recession of 2008 hit, Greece spiraled into a debt crisis. To make matters worse, in 2009, it was revealed that Greece had been falsifying reports on their debt for years. When the real statistics were exposed, their national credit rating took a plunge, which in turn caused investors to jack up interest rates. Greece has been on the brink of bankruptcy ever since. German Chancellor Angela Merkel later said that Europe should not have accepted Greece into the Eurozone. Out of the roughly $300 billion in bailout money that Greece must eventually pay back, most of it, or about 47%, is due to the European Financial Stability Facility. This is a temporary organization created by Eurozone members to pool money and help stabilize member countries in crisis. Greece, Portugal, and Ireland are the primary recipients of the EFSF. 19% of Greece's debt is held by other Eurozone governments. Another 12% is held by private investors, and the rest, about 22%, is held by the European Central Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and Treasury bill holders, who are primarily Greek banks. Yet, after all the financial help, Greece remains in trouble. The unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 24 is at 55%. Further, budget cuts are so unpopular that they have led to riots and protests. Meanwhile, Greece and other European governments are locked in heated dispute as to whether Greece should or even could make more financial reforms. Germany and France, who have invested nearly $115 billion in the country, don't want to see Greece default on its debt, but they are also refusing to give Greece another bailout. During the next half-century, Greece needs to stimulate its economy while decreasing government spending. In the end, most experts agree that Greece will not be allowed to go bankrupt. The financial loss for other Western countries, including the United States, would be too great and could potentially create another international recession. Although it's uncommon and definitely not the same as with people, countries can end up bankrupt. To learn more, make sure you check out this full video now.
So what happens when countries go bankrupt? First of all, a country going bankrupt is very different from a corporation or a person going bankrupt. If a corporation or a person declares bankruptcy, there are laws in place which help both the defaulter and the creditor recoup losses. But if an entire nation takes a nosedive into bankruptcy, it's sometimes a free-for-all.
Thanks for watching, guys. See y'all tomorrow.
Next this afternoon, if agreement over financial support for Greece is not reached, the country could leave not just the Eurozone but even the European Union. That's the warning from the Bank of Greece today, ahead of a crucial meeting of EU finance ministers to discuss the terms of any further aid. The country's Prime Minister, meantime, lashed out at the IMF, one of the key lenders.
Δεν έπεσε σήμερα στην Ελλάδα, είναι 5 χρόνια εδώ και έχει εγκληματικές ευθύνες για τη σημερινή κατάσταση πραγμάτων στη χώρα.
The country delayed a €300 million payment on the 5th of June, fueling more fears than of a Grexit. After several months of talks, the sides are still locked in deadlock over how best to tackle the crisis with no viable solution in sight. Greece says it won't accept more austerity cuts from its creditors, accusing lenders of being unreasonable. European heads of state, though, insist that, and they continue to insist, they've done this all along, that everything is being done to keep Greece afloat.
Parce que tout doit être fait pour que la Grèce reste dans la zone euro. Et en même temps, la Grèce doit comprendre que pour rester dans la zone euro, il faut faire un effort. Et les
Ich habe immer wieder gesagt, ich möchte alles dafür tun, was möglich ist, um Griechenland in der Eurozone zu halten.
Let's get the views of Patrick Young, an expert in global financial markets and no stranger to this one. Hi there, Patrick. Nice to see you today. So this Bank of Greece now chipping in. Is this just a warning? Is it going to mean something, or is it a probability, do you think, in the near future?
Well, it's incredible. I mean, so many people have seen shots across the bows in this Greek scandal. It's amazing people haven't been killed in the crossfire. Ultimately, the Central Bank of Greece are just saying what is the absolute clear truth. Probably their overall secretariat is still very sympathetic to the overall financial blob, if you were, the ECB, the IMF, the European Union's overall wares and so on. The difficulty is we're at a crisis point. Nothing has happened for months on end. We've got the immovable cannonball. It's about to be hit, or at least it's about to hit the unbreakable post. Something's got to give.
This
because
month really
that's
is
not
crunch
possible
month,
that
isn't
you
it?
can have two things that can't give way.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
is there
it's
going to be a
absolutely
Grexit?
a total fiasco. Yes. There's absolutely no doubt there's going to be a Grexit, because we know that the IMF have been hampered by the EU for the course of the last 5 or 6 years. Dominic Strauss-Kahn, right royally, rogered the entirety of the Greek population. He left them by default because effectively he came in with a typical IMF package all those years ago, but he didn't allow the currency to go down because, of course, they had to stay in the euro. The European Union isn't moving. Mrs. Merkel, the French, they're total hypocrites. What they're most interested in, first and foremost, was securing their banks. After that, the Greek people are a dodgy afterthought. In Greece itself, Mr. Tsipras has painted himself into a corner. He's got this radical leftist coalition government, and effectively they're saying originally they wanted their cake and to eat it. They wanted the euro. They wanted also some sort of miraculous package. The magic money tree was going to grow. They're not going to get that. They're going to get forced out of the euro.
Is he living on a pipe dream?
Yes. But then on the other hand, so is the EU. So everyone's living in La La Land at this point in time. Everybody believes in a magic money tree, a fairy that suddenly produces currency from nowhere and can manage to make everybody prosperous. And as we can see, the magic money tree doesn't work. It doesn't work in Greece, and actually it doesn't work in the rest of the Eurozone either.
But of course, you know, everybody in Europe wants to see, or most people in Europe want to see Greece still in there, the people at the top anyway. Do you think behind the scenes they're now working on some kind of hybrid plan? OK, maybe it'll go back to the drachma or whatever, but no, it will stay in there. Some plan D, E, F, G, whatever you're going to call it, in the background here.
Well, certainly we obviously are on, I don't know, plan Kappa Lambda Iota or something like that. There are certainly desperate measures being taken in Brussels, but ultimately everybody is in a bind. If they give Greece relief, why should the nurses and school teachers and pensioners of Bratislava live in a worse environment, give up their money as they already have done in order to support a better standard of living in Greece? These are the sorts of core questions that arise when ultimately you jerry-build a single currency. So therefore, whatever the EU does now, effectively they've got to go through another nexus of lies and breaking their own laws, which say you can't have a parallel currency beside the euro, that you can't have all sorts of different aspects of debt relief. And therefore, we're really in a very difficult situation, because essentially both parties are not capable of yielding sufficiently to get an agreement. And that's why I think it doesn't matter. We're going to run out of letters sooner or later in the European alphabet. We're going to run out of letters in the Greek alphabet. And once effectively we hit omega, that's the day they're going to press the button and Greece is going to default and leave the Eurozone.